Another huge severe weather event is ahead across a large chunk of the United States today, with unfortunately more significant damaging winds, large to very large hail, and more strong tornadoes being a possibility. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down everything that you need to know about today's severe weather event and why it could be a very active day, not just this morning, but also as we go into the afternoon with two different lines of thunderstorms. So right now, the Storm Prediction Center has upgraded the risk for severe weather to an enhanced risk for quite a large area. Now, granted, it was already an enhanced risk, but it has expanded further, at least in the most recent outlook from earlier this morning. We have an enhanced risk across the Ohio Valley and as well as back into parts of the lower Midwest, where there is going to be an elevated shot for very large hail and damaging winds, and as well as the potential for a few tornadoes, and even a few strong tornadoes will be another possibility today. Obviously, last night we had a crazy amount of tornadoes happening after sunset. We had 3 or 4 different large tornadoes. One happened in North Texas, one happened over in Oklahoma, one happened over in Northwest Arkansas, and this is a situation where I don't think we're going to have the same sort of threat today, but you should be staying weather aware because things like this can change on a dime. Today's severe weather setup will be a little bit different from yesterday, as it's going to be more linear, but something to keep in mind is that we'll have the potential for some strong tornadoes. Notice there is a slight risk that goes all the way back into southern Michigan and back into the Dixie Alley, where damaging winds will be the primary concern, and the marginal threat goes all the way back over into the Central Plains and even into the east coast of the United States. Now, the wind concern is again the greatest threat for today. We are going to have 2 rounds of storms. One's already happening this morning with significant damaging winds rolling across areas in Kentucky and Tennessee, but don't be fooled because we're going to have another round of storms later today, and depending on how fast that environment starts to restable or recovers, I should say, and unstabilizes again, we are probably going to eventually see another round of storms in southern and central Illinois and southeastern parts of Missouri. So this area in particular, be vigilant and stay weather aware, as that'll be our next initiation point later today for significant damaging winds, and as well as the potential even for some significant hail, which some hailstones could be as large as the size of baseballs, potentially even some hailstones as large as the size of apples. So make sure you're protecting your vehicle today for sure. The tornado risk is not a huge sort of tornado risk today when it comes to the strong tornado threat, but I honestly want to remind you that anywhere in this area could still see strong tornadoes. So you want to make sure that you're staying weather aware and have a tornado action plan in place. With that said, our greatest tornado threat is outlined across southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, western Kentucky, and northwestern Tennessee. So you need to make sure you're staying vigilant, especially if you're in that area later today, where those discrete supercells will begin to fire off in those areas. Now, the low-level jet for today will intensify a couple of times. So we have one little intensification this morning, predominantly a wind threat though for this morning. This afternoon, we're going to get a westerly and southwesterly flow across parts of southeastern Missouri and southern Illinois, where that elevated tornado risk will become more apparent as we go throughout the afternoon and even into the early evening tonight. So make sure that you're staying weather aware. So that's just kind of one of the setup features for today. Another thing to keep in mind is the significant tornado parameter values. They really spike right around 5 to 6 o'clock this evening, right across this boundary here where those initial discrete supercells will fire off. So you need to make sure if you're right in this area in southern Illinois and southeast Missouri that you're definitely staying weather aware. Keep in mind we could still see tornadoes elsewhere, but again, that's really, I think, the greatest corridor for tornadoes will be right in here in southern Missouri and as well as southern Illinois and southern Indiana. That tornado threat eventually decreases as we go late into the evening and into the overnight hours as those storms eventually move into Tennessee. So again, fairly active day is ahead for today. Let's break down the timing hour by hour and give you an idea of where these storms will be and when. So right now we have plenty of clusters of thunderstorms ongoing in southern Missouri and even into western Kentucky. As we go throughout the morning this morning, this will continue to march east. I do think there will still be a damaging wind and a low tornado risk across Kentucky and northern Tennessee as we continue to go throughout the morning this morning. Now, I don't think I'll be live for this unless I get up early enough, so keep that in mind if you're over here in Kentucky, but we might be live, so subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. By around 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll continue to see this complex of storms roll right into eastern Kentucky, where there could even be some power outages along the way, and another complex perhaps behind that producing the same sort of threats with damaging winds and maybe an isolated tornado. Now, once we go into the afternoon, right around about 4 o'clock, storm initiation will explode across southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana. Any storms that do remain semi-discrete or discrete initially will produce a significant hail threat and also the potential for a strong tornado or two. And as this cluster really begins to organize and form storms more into a line of storms, this will eventually elevate the tornado risk, leading to the potential for strong tornadoes even in this line of storms. And that means QLCS tornadoes, which is quasi-linear convective system tornadoes, will be a possibility here across the lower Midwest and eventually into the Ohio Valley. By about 9 o'clock, those storms are a very organized line of storms. There will be some bowing segments, which means that we could have some elevated damaging wind threats as well as this continues to track to the south and east across Kentucky, southern Ohio, and Tennessee. By about midnight or so, this continues. It does not end really anytime soon. It's going to remain a pretty intense line of storms probably all the way past midnight and even into the overnight hours, where there will be significant damaging winds still a possibility. Now, I do think after midnight we will still have damaging winds, but it should become more scattered or even isolated in some cases, and this line should eventually fizzle out a little bit after midnight. It will probably continue in the Dixie Alley all the way through about 4 a.m. or so, and then that damaging wind threat will start to diminish, and then storms will start to weaken out overall here across the East Coast. Now, with that said, we do have a large slight risk and even marginal threat of severe weather as we go into Monday. Thank goodness, though, I think after Sunday, which is today, I do think overall the severe weather threat is going to start to die down a lot more. I think overall Monday and Tuesday look a lot quieter. With that said, we do still have a large area of severe weather to watch for, anywhere from Texas back into New York. This is a large area, so still stay weather aware, but I think a lot of these storms will be more focused towards wind and hail, and that should overall be a lower risk. There's also going to be a chance for a couple of tornadoes that could be brief and weak back over in Virginia, even parts of Maryland, and maybe even Delaware, so make sure that you're staying weather aware. Now, beyond today, what do I think will happen, and even after tomorrow? Well, overall, the jet stream is going to remain a little bit calmer as we go into next week. We are going to still have a lot of digging over here on the East Coast and even in the Northeast, where we will still have troughs that are going to continue to pummel some colder air and some showers and storms on the East Coast. But welcome back to our friend, the Omega Block. This will start to bring some drier conditions across much of the United States, and most likely some warmer conditions with some elevated storms being possible back over in West and Central Texas as we go throughout the week. By the time we go into Friday and a Saturday, that might be our next big low pressure system that brings severe weather. Now, lots of uncertainty remains with this, but if we do get any severe weather as we go into either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, it will more than likely be in the Midwest. And then as we go into the following week, so even into early to mid-June, things look pretty quiet. We don't have any major signs right now of any more outbreaks, at least past today. Now, as we go into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, again, notice that trough leaves the country. It will still impact areas in the Northeast. Plenty of thunderstorm activity throughout the week in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Overall, mostly just hail and wind events, if anything, maybe an isolated tornado threat. By the time we go into Friday into Saturday, we might get some more showers and storms in the Midwest, Central, and Southern Plains. It will probably still remain pretty active. I just don't think there's going to be anything that significant other than hail and wind. And then as we go into Sunday into Monday, again, things just look quiet. So hopefully this continues. Let's hope we don't want more severe weather outbreaks. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep you posted with the latest.